Hi, I'm Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on NewsFeed today. 5 days on from that attack in New Zealand, we ask if there is anything unique about white nationalists from Australia. A social media storm in China after a woman is stopped from riding a train because of her makeup. Happy International Happiness Day. How are you feeling? And a Californian bloom attracts Instagrammers so much so they had to shut down the park. Now, top of our newsfeed, can we gain insight into the rise of the far right around the world by examining how the man who murdered people at that mosque in New Zealand last Friday came to the views that he did? And we wanted to find out if there was something specific about the experience of white Australians which leads them to some of those hate-filled places that ended up where that killer was. To get some knowledge, we spoke to John Safran, a journalist, documentary maker and comedian whose latest book is called Depends What You Mean by Extremist.
Things roll out in slightly different ways than they would if it was in America or if it was in Turkey, indeed, or in Europe. We've got, like our far right, things that feed into it are things such as the Aboriginal issues, that Australia came and colonised an Aboriginal country. We've got our immigration patterns that would be slightly different. We're quite a secular country. So, for instance, compared to America, where like pilgrims came, and so there's a real Christian kind of basis to a lot of the issues here. It's a bit murkier. We're not as Christian, so we don't have that element. So yet there's lots of little little knots in our history that makes it like different to other places.
Well, let's just broaden this slightly then. I mean, as you say, there's some specifics about Australia and you've got those groups there who this person claimed to be a part of. But how much do you think there's a sort of a white nationalist, a white supremacist international that's going on at the moment that is connected through the internet and who kind of gen each other up?
I think definitely this guy was radicalised online, and I followed a lot of these far-right groups, like their podcasts and their message boards whilst researching my book. And his manifesto is just bullet points from this sort of post-2015 alt-right theory of the world. And it is interesting that if 20 years ago, if you were a loner, you'd be at home alone and you'd be a loner. But now, because of the internet, you can both be a loner and then still, in a contradictory way, have just so much access to all these other people that you don't actually know, but you know, they're your online community.
Each other. Now, where do you stand on the banning of things like 8chan and 4chan? They've been taken down, I think, in Australia and New Zealand in the past couple of days.
Kick people off. Is that, or you deplatform, is that going to end up with them not having space to be racist anymore, or is it going to radicalise them further? There's some things like, for instance, that YouTuber PewDiePie, who he's really mainstream, and some of his humour is kind of South Park humour, and he got in trouble for doing some Hitler jokes that, to my mind, just seemed like South Park jokes or whatever. And I kind of really feel that after he apologised, it would have been a better idea to try to bring PewDiePie back into the mainstream rather than kind of push him away. So suddenly the alt-right looked at him as an ally, and suddenly this guy who, in all likelihood, is not a neo-Nazi, is more just a South Park-esque humorist, has become a totem for the alt-right, all because they came to his defence because he was deplatformed.
See, this guy who did this is way over here. There's a bunch of those people in the sort of closer to the middle of that mad area where they talk about a lot of this stuff. Where you talked about bringing them in to kind of the mainstream to have the discussion with you. Where do you stand on slightly more creative ways of dealing with it? I don't know if you remember the story from Chelsea Football Club when some guys abused Raheem Sterling. The guys were then taken to Auschwitz on a trip to try and understand the history. Where do you stand on stuff like that?
I mean, it's unprovable. I think all that stuff's good, and I think when I was hanging out with people on the alt-right, because they were holding rallies in Melbourne, there was a real distinction between the leadership, like the people who are organising the rallies, and the people who turn up. So people who turn up would have just such different reasons why they were there. Like, for instance, they might have been told, "Oh, we're fighting for the community, and there's drug and ice problems in the community at the moment, and so our group, which was the far right group, we're going to try to help you out." So you'd have people there that were there for that reason. So yeah, people like that you definitely try to bring back into the mainstream, and that's because these outright leaders, they just use anything to try to get a following, and some of the things they use aren't racial. So that's an example of one thing where, they'll talk to people and say, "Oh, we're here because we're worried about the drug problem in your community, or we're worried about economics and about unemployment." And yeah, so the kind of people who've been drawn in on those premises, that they definitely, we should be reached out to and try to lead them away from the Nazis.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the other things that caught our eye on social media. Now, Facebook targets you with ads based on race, gender, age, and location. An American civil rights group said that this was discriminatory, and Facebook have finally agreed. They will pay $5 million to settle 5 different lawsuits and say they will change how their ads can micro-target groups. Google is getting into gaming with the launch of Stadia, a Google Chrome-based gaming platform. That means you'll be able to play your faves on a variety of screens and take it with you in your pocket. But will it change the gaming industry? Questions are being asked about how people with bad internet connects would be able to stream games, and some say it may end up hurting the profitability of gaming if users are only required to pay a monthly subscription fee compared to expensive individual console games. Full games and lineup spec will be announced at a launch event in the summer, as if I needed another distraction. The actor Gemma Chan has spoken to a magazine about playing Tess Hardwicke in the film Mary Queen of Scots. Gemma Chan is Chinese and Tess Hardwicke is not. Now, some parts of the internet took exception to this and gave her and the movie producers a hard time online. Gemma Chan said that if John Wayne can play Genghis Khan, why can't she play Tess? Okay. She also said, "I feel like Hamilton the musical opened minds a lot. We have a black man playing George Washington. They describe it as America then, told by America now. And I think our art should reflect life now."
You are going to help create happy memories that will last for the rest of her life.
Now, the trailer for Toy Story 4 has dropped. It's going viral and shows far too much of the movie for my liking, but I don't think it's aimed at me. It seems to be a rehashing of some of the classic Toy Story lost toy found again tropes. The trailer seems light on the lols and heavy on the schmaltz. Again, that's just my opinion. I don't think this is aimed at me. Now, Chinese social media has been buzzing in the past few days over a woman's makeup, and the incident has led to loads of people all over China and the world coming out in support. Here's Samantha in Beijing.
Well, this all blew up after a woman took to Chinese social media saying that she was stopped by a female security guard at a subway station and told to remove her makeup. Now, according to her post, this happened in the southern city of Guangzhou, and the worker claimed her makeup looked too scary. Now, the reason this woman said she took to this public platform was to essentially ask, according to which law was she stopped. She also said she'd found out that this wasn't the first time that this had happened to someone, labelling it discrimination. Now, this look is apparently becoming increasingly popular among young women here in China, and the incident has sparked a protest online, with people throwing their support behind the woman using the hashtag a selfie for the Guangzhou metro and sharing pictures of themselves. Now, netizens have said that the makeup shows women's courage and that we should respect people's rights, but while thousands of people have been showing their solidarity, not everyone agrees. Some people have shown their support for the security guard, saying it's inappropriate to wear such heavy makeup in public places as it might cause panic or draw too much attention. Now, officials have apparently said before that if passengers' outfits affected the public or caused panic, the staff would discourage them from taking the subway. And interestingly, back in 2014, officials here in Beijing banned fancy dress and so-called scary makeup on the subway during Halloween for similar reasons. Now, the Guangzhou subway did issue an apology on its official Weibo account, saying they had looked into the incident and suspended a staff member linked to it, also promising to improve their service in the future.
Thanks, Sam. A spin around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Wednesday. An Italian politician who'd been a vocal critic of Italy's plans to mandatorily vaccinate its citizens has got the chickenpox because he didn't get vaccinated. Chickenpox is a childhood illness. I had it myself, but it can be serious in adults. Massimiliano Federiga is in hospital. Can you say irony? The US ambassador to Germany has been called a brat and a failure by some German politicians. Richard Grenell has been in his job since May 2018, but has not enamoured himself to his host nation due to his full-throated and tweeted support for the ramblings of the man in the White House. The discovery of an ancient shipwreck in Egypt has solved a historical mystery which has been going on since 450 BCE. It involves the Greek historian Herodotus, who wrote about an Egyptian cargo ship called a baris. Now, because modern historians had not come across the archaeological evidence of the ship, they disputed Herodotus's claims until now. Something called Ship 17 has been found, and the scientists say it's the vessel Herodotus described. Now in California, a super bloom of flowers attracted Instagrammers as much as it did insects, but now the town where it happened, Lake Elsinore, has had to ban the former. Now there was so much interest and popularity thanks to people posting pictures of themselves among the flowers that they're causing irreparable damage to the fauna and traffic jams. Tourists were stopped from visiting on Sunday as officials there said there was a public safety issue. It was reopened on Monday so people could continue to post things like this. Cool. Now, today is another one of those UN-stipulated days, and this one asks you to do what Bobby McFerrin told you to do all those years ago. Don't worry, be happy.
March 20th is International Happiness Day, and it's pretty much what it says on the tin. The event was first held by the UN in 2013 and coincides with the spring equinox as a celebration of all that makes humans happy and the right to strive for the feeling as a fundamental right. This year's happiness report focuses on the community. The co-editor of the report says the world is a rapidly changing place. How communities interact with each other, whether in schools, workplaces, neighbourhoods or on social media, has profound effects on world happiness. And around the world, people have taken to social media to share what makes them happy. Shelley Culra believes that happiness is a two-way process. Happiness is something, if you give it away, then it comes right back to you. Twitter user Persian Rose quotes a 14th century poet who tells us that happiness is not only something that we seek, but rather it is always seeking us. Others have been spreading messages of hope for those suffering from mental health illnesses like depression, encouraging them to always seek help. And former middleweight boxing champion Chris Eubank shows us that happiness is doing things that make you happy and not missing a step in the process. But not all happiness is equal, and of course there's a happiness scale, with Finland yet again taking the top spot as the happiest country in the world. They've held the coveted spot for the last 3 years. Unsurprisingly, perhaps countries like Yemen, India, Syria, Botswana and Venezuela find themselves at the bottom of the list due to the combination of economic, political and social stresses they face. But there is always hope. Countries in Central and Eastern Europe and some in sub-Saharan Africa have shown increased happiness over the last few years, with Benin showing the biggest increase. So wherever you are in the world, we hope you're happy and wish you a great International Happiness Day from the team here at NewsFeed.
Well, that'll be all from the NewsFeed team. Reach out to us with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. You'll find me at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter and YouTube, and you can follow me on Instagram if you'd like. Follow, subscribe and add. See you again tomorrow.